Hello everyone, and today I'm gonna talk about literacy. Literacy is ability to use language, symbols, images in a variety of forms to read, write, speak, listen, observe, and think critically about ideas. So you can see that literacy is a little bit more than we might think first. We usually refer to literacy as reading and writing, while in early childhood context, literacy is much more than that. Literacy is ability to use your language, and it might be emergent literacy, so something that is preceding literacy as such. So this might be involvement in reading a book together. So it might be exposure to print-rich environment. It could be just having a conversation or using images for any type of play or art children are involved in. So emergent literacy might be about scribbling as well, because literacy is ability to write, as you can imagine. It might be a puppet show. So emergent literacy can take any shapes or forms as long as children use symbols, images in a meaningful way, and they also exposed to speaking. Yes, so and they learn conventions of speaking. They might also be involved in thinking about what they've just read or thinking about the activity that are involved. So yeah, this really widens up the definition of literacy. And that's why I wanted to introduce these cards that can be used as a resource for educators, just to enhance their understanding of literacy from Department of Education in Australia, but also can be used with parents to pass this information on to them to enhance their understanding of literacy and be advocates for children. So you can see here that they have pictures, images, which is wonderful for any bilingual families or families with different community languages and cultures. It's evident that a child is involved in a certain type of reading with mom, so you can see that pretend reading is real reading. Yeah, and then on the other side of the card, so you can see that there is a scenario there and some explanation. So really great cards, free to download as a PDF file, but I was lucky I got one of the first sets here. So next one, making lists is useful writing. You can see how young is this child, but involved in social interactions with his grandma. And you can see that this is a meaningful type of literacy as well, because child might participate in it in a way that is age appropriate. For example, a list goes down the page. It is a message, yes, so you can remember things that you need to buy, and he might understand that lists are for remembering information and carrying information with you. So that's a fantastic way to introduce literacy. Talking about their favorite TV show helps children to learn. Quite often TV watching is considered to be a passive activity, but if you add some questions or reflections here, there you go, you are supporting literacy, and in particular emergent literacy. Playing with rhymes, that's my favorite, helps children to practice sounds. A lot of rhymes are created to promote articulation, and communication invites or requires use of sounds in articulate way. So use a lot of rhymes. Try to find them on YouTube or in books and sing with your children in groups, family daycare, or whenever you are involved with working with children. Sharing books is also beginning of reading. The more child is exposed to home reading, the higher they score on vocabulary testing, which was done multiple times in US and other countries. So this is one of the most important steps in teaching to read and write, so and supporting emergent literacy. Other people can read what we write. Oh, that's very important step. Although not all centers have computers. Children can write on a piece of paper, or they can dictate us something and we can write it down and then we can read it back to them. So that's emergent literacy as well. Drawing and scribbling lead to learning to write. Yes, so that's very, very important one, because quite often people think that children scribble and they mess up paper. Yeah, your role as an educator to challenge them and explain that children scribble and draw because that's what they do before they learn to write. So they need to have a very good hold of the pencil or texter. Yeah, so that's why this is a great tool. So for example, in the kinder I teach, I have clipboards, and these clipboards might have texts attached to them, or pens or pencils. So when I do some tasks around the room, I also notice that a lot of children like to imitate me and they ask for the same clipboards. And now it's widespread practice that early childhood teachers are using and educators are using clipboards with paper attached, so children can have this activity, scribbling or pre-writing, everywhere. Messages can be sent from one place to another. So if you are posting things with a child, so you can see that they can understand this as well. We can tell stories in lots of ways. So this is a way to incorporate sand storytelling. So there might be oral storytelling as well, so narratives. Yes, so we tell stories when we are not using books, and this is emergent literacy as well. You can't read too many stories, definitely. Yeah, read a lot and tell stories as well with puppets, not just books. Watching and listening develops language 100%, because communication is not just about books, it's also verbal and non-verbal communication, a language that children speak much better at first. Reading gives us information. So looking at newspapers with or any kind of community brochures, takeaway menus may also help children to develop literacy. Reading helps us to get things done. Following the recipe is the best way to introduce literacy in a fun way. Simplify it, use images, and introduce it to your program. Signs and words are all around us. That's a real story. A lot of children do learn M for McDonald's as a first, first literacy step. Describing things and grouping them develop the language of classifying. So you see here the science and math in the same activity. Learning to read carefully takes time. That's about how language development and literacy development is a long-term project. It shouldn't be rushed, it shouldn't be pushed. So children need to be exposed to all these wonderful positive interactions. If you think about theory that comes along, that would be a theory of Lev Vygotsky, who was saying that language is a tool of mind. So you need to develop thinking while you are speaking with adults, and adults speak to you as a child. And this becomes your becomes your public speech when you speak you talk about what you are doing, because these are the words that your parents are using or adults around you, and then it becomes your private speech. So this helps you to organize your thinking process. Any kind of literacy development, if you look at it from Vygotsky perspective or social cultural theory perspective, is definitely a social endeavor. So that's why all these pictures show adults involved in literacy learning. So I hope you will take it on board as an early childhood educator. Have fun with literacy.